South Africa is a country on the southernmost tip of the African continent, so it has a subtropical location. South Africa is known as the Rainbow Nation because it is very ethnically and culturally diverse, and the nation has 8 official languages. The South African government is a constitutional democracy with a 3-tier system consisting of national, provincial, and local sectors. Climate change issues are mainly handled by the Environmental Affairs Department of the South African government, and one of the 12 outcomes identified by the South African government is environmental assets and natural resources that are well protected and continually enhanced. South Africa experiences many sunny days and dry days. The east coast is along the Indian Ocean, which has very warm currents, and the west coast is located along the Atlantic Ocean, which has cooler currents. South Africa experiences winter and summer at different times than observed in North America. South Africa is also relatively dry with less rainfall than average. The temperature in South Africa tends to be lower than other countries at similar latitudes, and this is due to the nation's elevation being above sea level. According to the nation's World Meteorological Organization, South Africa is warming faster than the global average trend. Major South African cities, including Cape Town, Durban, Port Elizabeth, and East London, are at risk of flooding by 2050 due to rising sea levels as an effect of climate change. Across South Africa, changes have been noted in tree cover. Forests are expanding at the expense of grasslands. On a global scale, records show that trees have increased in savanna since the 1950s. It is likely that higher CO2 levels in the atmosphere are responsible for making trees grow faster than in the past. One of the most striking signs of climate change in South Africa is the significant decline in distribution of the Kokerboom allodichotoma, a long-lived drought-resistant species over the past 45 years.
Climate change poses a significant threat to South Africa's water resources, food security, health, infrastructure, as well as the nation's ecosystem services and biodiversity. According to the National Research Strategy, water is the primary medium through which the impacts of climate change are being felt in South Africa. Increases in climate variability and extremes are impacting both water quality and availability through changes in rainfall patterns. There have been more intense storms, floods and droughts, changes in soil moisture and runoff, and significant effects of increasing evaporation and changing temperatures on aquatic systems. South Africa has been experiencing a serious drought since 2015 that has caused crop losses, water restrictions, and impacts on food and water security. Many South African farms are already close to losing the microclimates upon which their farms depend, so they cannot adapt to a 2 degrees Celsius increase in temperature as a result of climate change. There already isn't enough groundwater for these farmers to extract for irrigation, and that situation is going to worsen as climate change sets in. The mean annual temperatures in South Africa have increased by at least 1.5 times the observed global average of 0.65 degrees Celsius over the past 5 decades. The 2013 South African Long-Term Adaptation Scenarios and the 5th Assessment Report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change for RCP 8.5 suggest warming relative to 1986 to 2005 of 3 to 6 degrees Celsius by 2081 to 2100 in South Africa's interior, but are less certain of precipitation changes in terms of direction and magnitude. South Africa's per capita emissions are high compared to other countries on the African continent, so climate change mitigation has already been a focus of South African leaders for a number of years. The National Climate Change Response White Paper makes new demands related to the nation's adaptation planning in key sectors that are directly related to economic development, including agriculture, forestry, marine fisheries, and water. Policies addressing climate change have been developed by the South African government, including the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Procurement Program, and the nation's national treasury has also considered and planned the implementation of carbon taxes. However, because South Africa is undergoing continuous development and has relatively high levels of poverty and inequality, the nation's leaders have to consider these factors when addressing mitigation and adaptation strategies.